So I want you to imagine you are drowning in a freezing ocean.
Okay, starting off pretty intense.
Yeah, just stay with me here. Your lungs are just burning, the water is pulling you down, and you are literally moments away from going under for the absolute last time.
Right.
And right past you, just slicing through the water, sails this massive, gleaming luxury yacht.
Ah, okay. I see the picture.
Yeah, and it's filled with people,
Yeah.
like good, upstanding people. They're wearing these crisp white clothes, drinking champagne, enjoying the sun.
Living the good life.
Exactly. And they lean over the railing, they look right at you, struggling in the water, but they absolutely refuse to throw you a lifeline.
Wow. Just leaving you there.
Right.
I-
And you know why? Because you don't have a ticket to be on their yacht. You aren't of their social class, so they just sail on by.
It's a completely chilling thought. Just the idea of, the so-called righteous people leaving someone to die purely on a technicality.
But wait, it gets worse, actually. Just as you're giving up, a pirate ship sails by.
A pirate ship.
Yeah, and the pirate captain sees you, doesn't ask for a ticket, just throws over a net and pulls you right out of the freezing water.
He saves you.
He saves you. He wraps you in a warm blanket, gives you a hot meal, and treats you as an absolute equal on his ship.
Which is great, but he's still a pirate.
Exactly. Now, you aren't naive, right? You know this guy is a pirate. You know he robs other ships, causes chaos, breaks every rule in the book.
Yeah, you know who you're dealing with.
Right. But a week later, when the Royal Navy comes over the horizon to attack and sink that pirate ship, who do you fight for?
I mean, you fight for the pirate without hesitation.
You absolutely do. And that exact psychological tension is basically the blueprint for our entire deep dive today.
It's such a perfect analogy for what we're getting into.
It really is. We are taking this massive stack of sources today, focused on one of the most profound ancient epics in human history, the Mahabharata.
And for those taking notes, it's pronounced Mu-ha-h, Brutu.
Yes, thank you for that. And our mission today, for you listening, is to completely dismantle the classic hero narrative.
We really are. We're going to explore the architecture of rejection, the deep psychology of the villain, and, well, the extreme limits of loyalty.
The terrifying limits, honestly.
Seriously. Because the Mahabharata is this colossal, ancient Indian epic. It's thousands of years old, and it delves into duty, morality, and just the absolute messiness of human psychology.
But we aren't focusing on the traditional heroes today, are we?
No, we're not. We are looking at a central figure named Karna, pronounced K-R-N-O, and understanding him requires a total paradigm shift from the listener.
Like a completely different way of looking at things.
Right. We have to entertain a very provocative idea here, and that is villains aren't just born evil. They are forged by exclusion.
That is so heavy. Forged by exclusion. Because when you really dig into the sources, you start to see exactly why someone would actively choose the wrong side of history.
And psychologically, it makes devastating sense.
It really does. Even though this is a story about, ancient chariots and divine weapons, it perfectly maps onto why we stubbornly stick by our most flawed, difficult friends today.
It's the exact same psychological blueprint.
Exactly. So to understand this, we have to start at the foundation. We have to look at why Karna was an outsider in the first place.
Right. Let's talk about the architecture of his rejection.
Please set the stage for us. What was this society like?
Well, we have to understand the society he was born into. Ancient India, at least as depicted in this epic, operated on a very rigid caste system.
Like incredibly rigid.
Extremely.
Yeah.
This was the defining structure of human value. You had the Brahmins, who were the priests and scholars. You had the Kshatriyas, who were the warriors and kings.
In the top of the food chain, basically.
Basically, yeah. And then further down the hierarchy, you had the Shudras, the laboring classes, which included professions like charioteers.
When your caste kind of dictated everything, didn't it?
Everything. It wasn't just your job, it was your worth. It determined who you could speak to, what you could learn, and where you could stand in a room.
So how does Karna fit into this?
Well, Karna is born with martial skills that are, frankly, unparalleled. He has this natural affinity for archery and combat that is equal to, or honestly, arguably greater than the great heroes of the epic.
And those heroes are the Pandavas, right?
Yes, a group of 5 royal brothers known as the Pandavas, pronounced P-A-N-D-U-V-U-S. But the thing is, Karna wasn't raised in a palace like them.
Right, he was raised by a charioteer.
Exactly. And because of this societal label, he was given the name Radhaya, which translates to son of Radha.
tying him completely to his adoptive mother and his lower societal status.
Right, you have this man who has the talent of a god, but the social standing of a servant.
It's just a recipe for disaster. And the sources detail this incredibly agonizing scene where this dynamic really comes to a head. Yes. The royals hold this massive public tournament to showcase the martial prowess of the young princes, especially the Pandavas. It's this huge, grand spectacle.
Everyone is there.
Everyone. And Karna steps into the arena. He basically challenges the greatest of the royal princes, Arjuna, to a contest of skill.
He essentially walks in and says, anything he can do, I can do better.
And he proves it right. He totally matches Arjuna arrow for arrow.
He does. But instead of being recognized for this undeniable talent, the arena turns on him.
Just immediately turns on him.
Yeah. The nobility demands to know his lineage. And when they find out his adoptive father is a charioteer, the mockery just begins.
It's brutal. They relentlessly humiliate him in front of the entire kingdom.
They tell him a charioteer's son has no right to challenge a prince. They literally tell him his hands are meant for holding reins, not a royal bow.
Wow. So they'd just ban him from competing any further.
Exactly. He is barred from competing simply because of his background.
There's an analogy in the sources that I think perfectly captures this feeling.
Oh, the master violinist one?
Yeah. So imagine you are a master violinist. You've spent your entire life bleeding over the strings, perfecting your craft.
Like thousands of hours of practice.
Exactly.
Wow.
Your technique is absolutely flawless. And you step out onto the stage at this grand concert hall and play the most beautiful, transcendent symphony perfectly.
The music is undeniable.
Totally undeniable. But when you finish, instead of clapping, the audience stands up, boos, and starts throwing stones at you.
Just a visceral reaction.
Right. And they aren't throwing stones because you played poorly. They are throwing stones solely because you were wearing rags.
That captures the psychological devastation beautifully. The stones aren't a critique of the music. They are a rejection of your right to even hold the instrument.
That is such a good way to put it.
In psychological terms, the sources refer to this as the stigma of origin.
Stigma of origin.
Yes. It's the profound trauma of being denied a seat at the table purely because of a category you've been placed in. It's not a lack of merit. It's an invisible wall.
Let me stop you there, though, because I think it's important to clarify the mechanism of that trauma.
Okay.
This isn't just about someone hurting your feelings once. This is chronic, right? If you are constantly told that your actual tangible skills don't matter because of where you come from, how does that rewire your brain?
Oh, it fundamentally alters your worldview. Think about it. If you are entirely capable, yet constantly rejected because of a societal label, the standard rules of that society stop making sense to you.
You just stop believing in the rules.
Exactly. It breeds chronic isolation and a very specific kind of resentment. Why should you respect a society or its definitions of what is good or bad when that society refuses to acknowledge your basic humanity?
Because the system has proven itself to be hypocritical.
Right. And if we pull this into modern life, you can see this isn't just an ancient problem.
No, not at all. It's like the brilliant, self-taught software engineer today who is constantly passed over for a promotion simply because they lack an Ivy League degree.
Yes. Less capable people with the right pedigree keep getting elevated above them.
And eventually, that engineer doesn't just feel disappointed. They feel completely alienated from the entire corporate system. The meritocracy becomes a joke to them.
Which brings us to a critical turning point in Karna's story. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, right? We need belonging, and we need validation.
We can't survive without it.
Exactly. If the righteous, accepted world rejects you, you don't just stop needing belonging. You go looking for it elsewhere.
Right. If the light rejects you, you will seek warmth in the dark.
Perfectly said. And right on cue, into the dark steps, the primary antagonist of the Mahabharata Duryodhana, pronounced Duryodhanu.
Let's set the scene back in that tournament arena, because this is huge.
It's the defining moment.
So Karna is standing in the dirt, being laughed at by the entire royal court. He is completely isolated. The good guys, you know, their righteous Pandavas and their mentors, they're all participating in this mockery or just silently allowing it to happen.
Nobody is standing up for him.
Nobody. And then Duryodhana steps forward.
Duryodhana is the eldest of a rival faction of cousins to the Pandavas. And he does something completely unprecedented here.
What does he do?
He doesn't just offer Karna a kind word in private. He publicly defends him. He declares, in front of everyone, that valor is not determined by birth, but by action.
Wow.
And to completely obliterate the technicality that Karna cannot fight a prince because he isn't a king, Duryodhana crowns Karna as the king of Anga, a small territory right then and there.
Wait, he literally puts a crown on a charioteer's son in front of the people who just spat on him.
He does. He gives him respect, status, and validation when everyone else gave him humiliation.
This is the pirate ship.
Exactly.
This is the moment the pirate captain pulls you out of the freezing water.
Yeah.
The luxury yacht, which is the righteous society, they sailed right past Karna because he didn't have the right caste ticket.
Right.
But Duryodhana pulled him onto the pirate ship and made him a first mate.
And this moment is the crucible for the rest of the epic. The sources introduce a core concept here called Krutujna.
Krutujna, what does that mean?
If you translate it directly, it means a debt of gratitude. But honestly, that English phrase is far too weak. It doesn't capture the absolute gravity of the concept at all.
It's deeper than just saying thank you.
Much deeper.
Yeah.
Krutujna, in Karna's context, is an uncompromising, absolute existential loyalty. It is a bond forged with the person who validated your existence when the rest of the world treated you as a ghost.
Man, because when you are saved from drowning, you don't interrogate the moral purity of the person giving you CPR.
You don't. You just breathe the air they give you.
You fight for the pirate because there is this deep, primal human instinct to protect the person who saved you. Like, the Royal Navy might represent law and order, but to you, the Navy represents the system that was perfectly willing to let you die.
Exactly. So Karna becomes fiercely, unbreakably loyal to Duryodhana, which sets up an incredible psychological clash much later in the story.
Right, because decades pass, right?
Yes. The tensions between Duryodhana and the heroes, the Pandavas, they escalate into a full-blown world war.
The massive Kurukshetra war.
Right. Millions of soldiers are gathered. It's the ultimate showdown. And just before the battle begins, Karna's loyalty faces a test that is so manipulative, it's honestly brilliant.
Let's talk about the context of this test, because it is essential to understand the weight of his choice here.
So there is a secret meeting just before the war starts. Lord Krishna, who is a divine avatar and basically the chief strategist for the heroes, along with Kumpi, who is the mother of the Pandavas, they come to speak with Karna privately.
Just the three of them.
Right, and they reveal a staggering truth, a secret that had been hidden since his birth.
They tell him he isn't a charioteer's son.
Exactly. Kunti reveals that before she was married, she was granted a divine boon and gave birth to Karna. But out of fear of the social stigma of being an unwed mother, she placed him in a basket and set him adrift on a river.
Which is how he was eventually found and raised by the charioteer family.
Yes, so Karna is actually Kunti's firstborn son.
Yeah.
He is biologically the eldest brother of the very heroes he's preparing to slaughter.
Oh my God, the psychological shock of that has to be unimaginable.
Completely universe-shattering.
The people who mocked him his entire life are his younger brothers. The society that rejected him actually belongs to him.
And Krishna and Kunti don't just drop this information to clear the air. They weaponize it.
Of course they do. They need him on their side.
Right. They make him an offer. They tell him that as the eldest brother, the crown of the entire empire belongs to him by right.
They offer him immediate universal validation.
They tell him that if he switches sides, his brothers will wash his feet. He will be recognized as a hero and he will fight on the side of Dharma.
Okay, we really need to pause here and explain Dharma because it is the entire engine of this epic.
It is the core concept.
Right. It gets translated as righteousness or duty, but from the sources, it's so much heavier than that. Dharma is like the social and cosmic gravity of this universe.
That's the natural order of things.
Right. When you act in accordance with Dharma, you maintain the balance of the universe. When you go against it, you create chaos. And Krishna is the literal embodiment of this cosmic law.
So think about what's happening. Krishna is standing in front of Karna saying, "Come over to our side, the right side, the side that the universe itself favors, and you will have the world."
It is the ultimate temptation. They are offering him everything he was ever denied, tied up with a bow of cosmic righteousness.
But Karna refuses.
He refuses. He turns down the crown, he rejects his biological family, and he actively chooses to fight against the side of Dharma.
And his reasoning is an absolute masterclass in the psychology of loyalty.
It really is. He basically looks at them and says, "You want me now because it is convenient for your war. Where were you when I was being publicly humiliated?"
Where are you when they called me a low-born dog?
Exactly. He points out the sheer hypocrisy of the offer. Like, Kunti abandoned him when it was socially inconvenient to keep him, and now she wants him back when it is politically advantageous to claim him.
It's incredibly manipulative on her part, and he sees right through it. He tells them that Duryodhana was the only one who loved him in his darkness.
Right. Betraying Duryodhana for a crown, or even for the sake of the universe's definition of righteousness, would be, in Karna's mind, a far greater sin.
This is a profound shift in moral framework. Karna's definition of morality has contracted.
Contracted how?
Well, society's definition of universal righteousness means absolutely nothing to him anymore compared to his personal righteousness of loyalty. He is fully aware that Duryodhana is flawed.
He knows he's the bad guy.
He knows Duryodhana is on the wrong side of history, but his loyalty is not for sale.
If you look at this, it's not just ancient history. It perfectly explains why we all have that one flawed anchor in our lives.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? That messy, chaotic, or even toxic friend that we absolutely refuse to cut off. Your put-together, successful friends will look at you and say, why do you still hang out with them? They're a disaster. They're dragging you down.
Because outsiders only evaluate the present behavior. They don't have access to the historical context.
Exactly. Outsiders don't see the history. They don't know that this messy friend is the person who sat on the bathroom floor with you for 4 hours while you were having a panic attack 5 years ago.
They don't see the pirate pulling you out of the water.
Right. They're the ones who answered the phone at 3 a.m. when your world was falling apart while all your righteous friends were asleep or, too busy building their personal brands to be bothered with your crisis.
Right.
So sticking by these flawed people isn't a sign of weakness or bad judgment to you. It is a deep, unbreakable honor. You're basically saying, you were there for me when I was nothing, so I will not abandon you when everyone else says I should.
And this is but we have to push back on this romanticization.
We do. We definitely do.
The sources provide a very robust, steel-manned counter-argument to this kind of toxic loyalty. Because if we just say, always stand by the pirate who saved you, we end up in incredibly dangerous moral territory.
We have to look at the ethics of blind loyalty. Let's play devil's advocate against Karna and against our own loyalty here.
Okay, let's do it.
At what point does sticking by the pirate make you a pirate yourself? Because Duryodhana wasn't just messy. He wasn't just a friend who drank too much and caused drama.
No, Duryodhana was a tyrant. And this leads to the first major counter-argument presented in the sources, the inescapable issue of complicity.
Break that down for us.
Duryodhana committed horrific, premeditated acts of violence and cruelty against the Pandavas. Early in the epic, he builds a beautiful, lavish palace out of highly flammable materials, lac and wax.
Like specifically designed to burn.
Yes. He invites his cousins, the Pandavas, and their mother Kunti to stay there for a vacation, with the explicit plan to torch the building in the middle of the night and burn them all alive.
I mean, that's just cold-blooded murder.
It is. And later, when that fails, he invites them to a rigged game of dice. Through deceit, he strips them of their entire kingdom, their wealth, and their freedom.
He just takes everything.
Everything. And the crowning atrocity occurs right after this dice game. Duryodhana orders the Pandava's wife, Draupadi, to be dragged into the royal court by her hair.
Just horrifying.
He publicly humiliates her and attempts to disrobe her in front of the entire assembly of kings and elders.
And where is Karna during all of this? The guy who supposedly has this deep sense of personal honor.
This is the damning part. Karna doesn't just stand silently by. He actively enables this abuse.
Wait, he participates?
During the humiliation of Draupadi, Karna verbally participates. He calls her vile names. He justifies her treatment. So the argument here is that true friendship requires accountability.
It means stopping your friend from destroying others, not blindly helping them pour the gasoline out of some misplaced sense of gratitude.
Exactly. That is a brutal reality check.
Hey.
It's one thing to answer a phone at 3 a.m. It's another to help your friend set a house on fire.
Right. And the sources bring up a second counter-argument that questions the very foundation of the pirate ship. It questions the nature of the love itself.
The idea of transactional friendship.
Yes. We have to ask, did Duryodhana actually love Karna, or did he just spot a human weapon?
It's a deeply cynical view, but a necessary one. Duryodhana was incredibly politically savvy. He knew that the Pandavas had Arjuna, who was widely considered the greatest archer in the world.
The guy Karna tied with at the tournament.
Right. Duryodhana knew that if it ever came to a war, and he was planning on it, he needed someone who could match Arjuna in combat, or his side would inevitably lose.
So when he saw Karna in that arena, saw his immense skill, and saw him being rejected by society,
He swooped in. The critique here is that crowning Karna wasn't an act of pure altruistic love. It was a strategic acquisition. He bought a weapon using validation as the currency.
Wow. And the warning for us here is massive. We cannot mistake transactional utility for unconditional love.
We do that so often, though.
We do. Sometimes that toxic friend who was there for us in our hard times only kept us around because our brokenness made them feel powerful, or because we served their ego.
We were their human weapon in their own interpersonal dramas.
Are they actually nurturing us, or are they just making sure their sword stays sharp?
That is a terrifying question to ask about your own friendships, and that leads directly to the third argument from the sources, the danger of the victim narrative.
Yes, this is so important. Empathy cannot excuse abuse.
Exactly. We can acknowledge that Karna suffered horrific trauma. The stigma of origin is real. The systemic unfairness was real. But many people suffer those things and choose to become kind, empathetic, and protective of others.
If we constantly say, well, it makes it understandable why they act so terribly, look at what they've been through, we rob the individual of their agency.
We treat them like they're just a product of their environment with no free will.
Wait, that's exactly it. Trauma doesn't rob you of your ability to choose. When Kunti and Krishna made that offer before the war, Karna had a choice.
He had an out.
He had a clear path to step into the light and stop the bloodshed. But he chose his grudges. He chose his ego and his anger. The pain explains the bad behavior perfectly, but it does not justify it.
It's the critical difference between an explanation and an excuse.
Right.
However, just as we start to confidently judge Karna as this complicit, ego-driven enabler, the epic does something brilliant.
It flips the script again.
It refuses to let him be a one-dimensional villain. It recomplicates his character in ways that totally scramble your moral compass.
Yes. The sources outline these incredible contradictions in his character. Let's weave these in because they show the extreme duality of who he was. For instance, Karna was famous, almost to a fault, for his absolute generosity.
He took a solemn vow to never refuse anyone who came to him asking for charity, especially after his morning prayers to the sun god who, by the way, was his actual divine father.
Which is a whole other layer. But this vow leads to one of the most dramatic moments in the epic. Karna was physically born with divine armor, called kavacha, and divine earrings, called kundala, literally attached to his body.
Like growing out of his flesh.
Yes. And as long as they were attached to him, he was immortal in battle. No weapon could kill him. The gods who supported the Pandavas knew this. They knew Arjuna could not kill Karna as long as he had the armor.
So what do? A disguised god comes to Karna as an impoverished beggar and asks for the armor and earrings as charity.
And Karna is highly intelligent. He knows it's a trick. He knows that giving them up means he will lose his invincibility and will almost certainly die in the coming war.
But because of his vow, he doesn't hesitate. He literally takes a knife and rips the armor from his own bleeding flesh to give it to the beggar.
It's just wild. How do you reconcile that? The man enabling a tyrant, the man who insulted a woman in court, is also the man tearing his own flesh to honor a vow of charity to a beggar, knowing it seals his doom.
It's impossible to categorize him. And we see this restraint again with his biological mother.
During that secret meeting, right?
Yes. When he refuses to switch sides, he still offers Kunti a profound consolation. He promises her that he will only fight Arjuna to the death.
He vows that if he encounters his other 4 biological brothers on the battlefield, he will spare their lives.
And he actually keeps this promise. During the brutal, bloody chaos of the Kurukshetra war, he has his other brothers at his mercy on multiple occasions. He easily disarms them.
He could have killed them and secured a massive strategic advantage for Duryodhana.
But he remembers his vow. He lowers his weapon, mocks them slightly just to keep up appearances, and walks away. He ensures that Kunti will always have 5 living sons, either the 5 Pandavas if Arjuna kills Karna, or Karna and the 4 younger brothers if Karna kills Arjuna.
It's this incredible psychological discipline in the middle of a slaughter. But as much as we talk about his choices, we also have to talk about how this system actively worked to destroy him.
Yes, the system was always against him.
This brings us to the guru's curse, which is where the stigma of origin comes back with a vengeance. Explain the mechanism here, because it's not just a magic spell, it's rooted in the caste system.
Right. So Karna wanted to learn the highest divine weapons. But the greatest teacher of these weapons, Guru Parashurama, had a deep hatred for Kshatriyas, the warrior caste, and refused to teach them.
He would only teach Brahmins, the priestly caste.
Because he believed only they had the spiritual purity and dedication required for such devastating knowledge. Karna, desperate for training and knowing he would be rejected as a charioteer's son, disguised himself as a Brahmin to get accepted as a student.
Which works for a while. He becomes the guru's favorite student, actually, but then there is this incredibly visceral story of how the secret is revealed.
It's so intense. One afternoon, the guru is resting, sleeping with his head on Karna's lap. Suddenly, a terrible flesh-eating insect burrows into Karna's thigh.
Ugh, just burrowing in.
The pain is excruciating and blood begins to flow. But Karna, not wanting to wake his sleeping master, doesn't flinch. He sits perfectly still, enduring unimaginable agony.
He just takes it, but the warm blood wakes the guru anyway.
It does. And the guru looks the wound, looks at Karna's stoicism, and immediately deduces the truth. He says, no Brahmin could endure such physical pain without flinching. Only a warrior, a kshatriya, possesses that kind of physical endurance.
So he realizes Karna lied about his identity.
Yes. And the punishment isn't just expulsion.
No, it's a curse tailored to destroy him. The guru curses Karna that he will completely forget all his divine mantras, the incantations needed to summon his most powerful weapons at the exact moment he needs them most, in a life-or-death struggle.
Think about the implications of this. His failure isn't just a possibility, it is literally programmed into his destiny by a system that rejected him.
And the tragedy of this is recognized even by the gods. Lord Krishna, who orchestrates Karna's downfall because he knows Karna is the primary obstacle to the righteous victory, deeply respects him.
The sources note that when Karna finally falls, Krishna actually weeps for him.
Krishna sees Karna's death not as a joyous, fist-pumping victory over a villain, but as a deeply tragic necessity.
And Krishna wasn't the only one who wept. Which brings us to a crucial detail about Duryodhana.
The tyrant friend.
Right. Throughout the entire epic, Duryodhana is greedy, arrogant, cruel, and manipulative. He is the quintessential villain. But when he receives the news that Karna has been killed in battle, this purely evil antagonist breaks down.
It just shatters.
He weeps inconsolably. He loses all will to fight. It is the one truly pure, unselfish, uncontrollable emotion he shows in the entire massive epic.
It proves that regardless of Duryodhana's terrible nature, his love for Karna was real. The pirate actually loved his first mate.
It forces you to realize that nobody is just one thing. A terror to the world can be an absolute saint to their best friend.
But we are dancing around the climax here. We need to talk about how this all ends. How does someone with Karna's skill, his determination, actually fall?
We find ourselves on the 17th day of the Great War. The battle is raging, the earth is shaking, and it finally comes down to the ultimate showdown. Karna versus Arjuna.
The two masters.
It is a clash of absolute equals. The sky is filled with their arrows. But then, the external forces, the architecture of his rejection, finally cash in their chips.
It's not a fair fight at the end. The universe steps in.
It does. As they are fighting, a previous curse from a minor deity takes effect. The earth itself suddenly becomes soft, and Karna's chariot wheel sinks deeply into the wet mud of the battlefield.
It is stuck fast.
Karna asks Arjuna for a temporary pause in the fighting, which was a standard agreed-upon rule of ancient warfare. You do not strike a warrior when he is unarmed or at a mechanical disadvantage.
So Karna steps down from his chariot. He places his bow down. He is completely unarmed, standing in the dirt, struggling with all his might to physically lift this massive wooden wheel out of the mud.
And this is where the morality gets incredibly gray, because Arjuna actually hesitates. He's a hero, he respects the rules of war, he doesn't want to shoot an unarmed man in the back.
But Krishna, who is driving Arjuna's chariot, instructs him to shoot.
Arjuna questions it. He says, it's against Dharma to shoot an unarmed man. But Krishna's response is a chilling execution of justice.
What does he say?
He reminds Arjuna of Karna's complicit silence during all of Duryodhana's atrocities. Krishna essentially says, where was Karna's dharma when Draupadi was dragged by her hair? Where was his honor when the wax house was burned? Where was his righteousness when you were cheated in the dice game?
Wow.
He chose unrighteousness his entire life. He gets no righteous protection from the rules now.
Krishna is basically saying that Karna forfeited the protection of the system when he enabled the breaking of the system.
At the same time, Karna tries to summon his divine weapon to defend himself, and the guru's curse takes effect.
His memory goes completely blank.
He forgets the mantras. He is trapped by the mud and trapped by his past. Arjuna fires the arrow, and the unarmed Karna is killed.
Here is a concept from the sources that is absolutely vital for us to unpack. It's called scripted departures.
Let's look at the symbolism here deeply because it's so rich.
Karna didn't fail because he was a worse warrior than Arjuna. He didn't just get outshot in a fair fight. Karna failed because the earth grabbed his wheel, which was the result of a curse. His memory failed him because his guru cursed him for his caste.
The invisible hands of his past pushed him over the edge.
Exactly. The departures in our lives, the ways we fail or are forced to exit a situation, are so often chosen for us by external forces.
We judge people harshly for how they fall, but we rarely see the invisible hands that pushed them or the mud that was deliberately placed in their path by a system that never wanted them to succeed in the first place.
If we bring this into the modern context, we have to ask, when someone fails today, when someone is fired or spirals out of control, is it really just a lack of merit? Or did the mud of their circumstances and the curses of their background finally pull them under?
The sources provide a brilliant modern translation of this exact dynamic to help us map it. Let's look at a corporate case study.
I love this part. Walk us through it.
Picture a brilliant software engineer. But this engineer didn't go to Stanford. They grew up in extreme poverty, dealing with systemic disadvantages, entirely lacking any kind of corporate mentorship or polish. But through sheer grit and undeniable talent, they fight their way into a top-tier tech firm.
Right. They matched Arjuna in the arena.
But once they're there, the stigma origin kicks in. They lack the soft skills, the country club etiquette, the subtle ways of speaking that their Ivy League peers take for granted.
So they stick out.
Yes, they are rough around the edges, fiercely defensive because they've had to be their whole life. So the corporate culture quietly rejects them. They aren't fired, but they are sidelined, left off the important emails, not invited to the networking events.
But then a modern-day Duryodhana steps in.
Exactly. A cutthroat, highly political manager who is widely disliked by the executives for their aggressive tactics takes this abrasive engineer under their wing. This manager protects them, promotes them, and gives them the validation the rest of the company denied them.
They pull them onto the pirate ship.
They do. Fast forward a few years, an HR scandal hits the company. That cutthroat manager is facing termination for their aggressive tactics.
Okay, here we go.
The executives call the engineer into a closed-door meeting and issue an ultimatum. They say, look, we need you to testify against your manager. If you do, we will protect your job and give you a promotion. If you don't, you go down with them.
It is the exact same offer Kunti and Krishna made before the war. Come to the right side, abandon your flawed anchor, and we will give you security and a crown.
But what does the engineer do? The engineer refuses. They choose to go down with the manager.
And the executives are totally baffled. They look at the engineer and think, what a self-destructive, foolish person. They are throwing their career away for a toxic boss.
But if you understand the Mahabharata, you understand exactly what you were watching. You were watching the story of Karna.
The executives think they are offering salvation, but the engineer is saying, you all judged me for my rough edges. You sidelined me. This manager was the only one who saw my worth when you all looked right past me.
I will not betray my anchor for a system that never wanted me in the first place.
It completely shifts how you view people, doesn't it? It moves us from abstract narrative analysis into something we can actively use in our own lives.
It really does. Because if we can practice this kind of empathy, if we can empathize with the antagonist, it makes their actions understandable.
It replaces our knee-jerk judgment with a really profound, tragic compassion.
And these sources provide direct, actionable reflection exercises for this. Knowledge is most valuable when it's applied, right?
Always. What's the first one?
The first exercise is called the Roots of Loyalty Audit. Pick a difficult friend or a colleague in your life right now. Someone you find yourself constantly defending, even when you know they are in the wrong.
Now you, the listener, ask yourself honestly, are you defending them because you genuinely believe in their potential to be better? Or are you just paying back a 10-year-old debt of gratitude?
That is a tough question to answer.
It is. If it's the latter, acknowledge the debt. Honor the fact that they were there for you when you were drowning. But recognize that loyalty to their past kindness does not require you to adopt or enable their current toxicity.
You can love the pirate without helping them sink other ships.
Perfectly said. What's next?
The second exercise is about practicing villain empathy with the people who actively frustrate us. We need to learn to separate the action from the origin.
So how do we do that?
Think of a workplace or family villain in your life. The person who is always defensive, always instigating. Instead of just reacting to their behavior, write down 3 things you know about their past insecurities, their upbringing, or their past rejections.
Try to connect the dots. Look for the mud that trapped their wheel long ago. And the crucial point here is that you do not have to forgive them. Understanding their trauma doesn't mean you let them continue to hurt you.
Exactly. But understanding the why removed their emotional power over you. They stop being a monster under the bed, and they become a tragically flawed human being acting out a script of pain.
And the final exercise is about reevaluating our own departures. We've talked about how we don't always get to choose our exits. Look back at a past personal failure.
Maybe it was a job loss, a terrible breakup, a blown opportunity where you felt like you just totally ruined it.
Usually we internalize 100% of the blame for those moments. We say, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't good enough.
But I want you to map out the mud that trapped your wheel in that situation. What were the systemic forces you couldn't control?
What was the timing? What were the external curses, the biases, the lack of resources, the toxic environments that played a role?
You didn't fail just because you lacked merit. Give yourself some grace for the invisible hands that pushed you.
It is incredibly liberating to realize that sometimes you were simply fighting on a muddy battlefield that was never designed for you to win.
It really is.
So let's briefly recap this incredible journey we've been on. We started with a misunderstood, brilliant warrior who was denied a seat at the table.
We explored the deep psychological trauma of the stigma of origin and how that trauma makes the warmth of a pirate ship so irresistible.
We unpacked the complexities of toxic loyalty, the real dangers of enabling a tyrant, and the tragic duality of a man who could rip off his own invincible armor for charity while simultaneously watching a woman be humiliated in court.
And finally, we looked at how systemic failure and external curses can script our departures, pulling our wheels into the mud regardless of our skill.
The source material leaves us with some deeply provocative, unresolved questions that I want you to mull over.
First, if our failures and our departures are predetermined by societal rejections and systemic curses, if the earth is always going to grab our wheel eventually, how much free will do we actually have?
And secondly, if you owe your very life, your success, your sanity to a deeply corrupt person or organization, at what exact point does your duty to the world override your personal debt of gratitude to the one who saved you?
Those are heavy questions.
They are. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We hope this ancient epic has given you a new lens for your modern life. Tomorrow, when you encounter the difficult people, the outcasts, or even the villains in your life, look a little closer at the mud on their wheels. You might just see the whole world a little differently. Take care.